Hello! Okay, welcome to all of the books that I read in 2025. This is coming a little late. I don't know, last year I filmed this like earlier on, or before the end of the year, and now I'm filming this at the end of January. I didn't meet my goal this year of, it's funny when you say it out loud because I feel like a lot of people read like so much more than me, and I feel like I say this every year, but this is also the year that I've read the most ever in a year. So take that as you will. I like to say a casual reader. I have a YouTube channel because I like to talk about books with people because I have no one to talk about it with. But I'm more of a casual reader. I aim to finish at least maybe 2 books a month. Yeah, but sometimes that doesn't happen depending on like pace, whether I'm in a slump or not. It's very, you know, uneven. I don't really have a set number of books that I read every year. I mean, like before these past 2 years, I think I read around 12 books each year. So it's nearly double. This year I read 22 books in 2025. My aim was 25 books for like 25 for 2025. But I feel like even though I didn't meet my goal, I still read some really good books this year. Also, if you're wondering, by the way, I am pretty sure I have a video about all of these books throughout the entire year. Like some books might be grouped together and some, although very few, have book vlogs dedicated to them. Most, I want to say like maybe even like 100% of these books have been featured on this channel at some point. I'm not gonna go too in depth about like, you know, reviews or anything, just like overall thoughts, I think, because I've talked about these before. I don't want to repeat myself, but I don't know, maybe I will repeat myself, who knows. But starting off the year, not on a very high note, in December of 2024, I was reading Dash and Lily's Book of Dares. I'd watched the show before, actually a few times. I like to watch it. Oh, I like to watch it throughout the year whenever, I don't know, I want like a Christmas feeling, I guess. Like, I like the show. So I was like, it's a book, why not pick it up and read it? You know, we're in Christmas time. Seems like an adequate time to do this. But I started it, I stopped reading for 2 weeks, and then I just wasn't really in the mood for it. This just felt very YA to me. And there's nothing wrong with the YA genre, but for me, it was like a little bit too much. Like it was a little bit too leaning towards the childish side. In my opinion, I do think the show did it better. I think it included and excluded things that the book just didn't do. I don't know, I just felt like I liked the show way more than the book. This is actually a series. I've only read the first one. I don't know if I'm ever gonna read the second or third one. Wait, I think it's a series, but either way, I just think the show flowed a little bit better than the book did. Overall, I gave this a 2.8 out of 5 stars. After that, I read One Dark Window. I still have to take the sticker off of this, but yeah, I got these, I feel like around Thanksgiving. I got One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. The cover was always speaking to me, like I wanted to read it, and then I heard a few like good things. I really liked this. Controversial opinion, I think, but I liked the first one more than the second one. This was a romantasy, and something I've learned about myself is that I think I like it when a romance, or I think I like it more when the romance is a secondary plot to the, you know, main plot. I don't find myself, I don't know, I just don't get captivated as much with romance. I think I like it as an underlying layer to our overall plot. But honestly, I remember being so wrapped up in this book, and every time I was going to read, I was so excited to go read, which right now actually I'm kind of in like, I don't know if I want to say a slump or something, but I haven't gotten excited to read in a very long time. And you know, sometimes when I'm looking for like something to be excited about, I always think about this book because honestly, I was very entertained. I like to predict a lot. If you're new around here, I like to predict everything that's happening in my books, especially if I'm doing like a reading vlog. I will spit out every theory that I have, hoping that one sticks. And so I did guess a few correct things. Honestly, if I guess a plot or something that's gonna happen, I don't necessarily get put off by that. I like guessing stuff right. I don't know, it makes me feel smart, but even if I don't guess it, that also doesn't affect it. But like at the same time, I just like guessing. This went in the way that I thought it was going. When I went into this book, I thought it was gonna be more of an adventure, like, you know, going on a mission or something like that, and that's not really the direction that it went in, at least in this book. But I gave this a 4.2 out of 5 stars. I really like this book. I enjoyed it, and also I really like this edition. The paper feels very nice. I'm just saying. I really love this book. I said 4.3 out of 5 stars. I was in between 4.2 and 4.3 it seems, because that's what I wrote down. But you know what? I'm going with 4.3 out of 5 stars. After that, I went on vacation. Okay, I went on vacation. I started reading Two Twisted Crowns, and then I didn't want to bring that with me. So I brought The Handmaid's Secret with me. I finished The Handmaid's... Sorry, it happens a lot. I say handmaid instead of housemaid. Okay. I brought The Housemaid's Secret with me. I had finished The Housemaid, the first one, in November around Thanksgiving. And I felt like I needed... I always say this. I don't tend to read much on vacation, so I'm really looking for something more fast-paced and probably on the shorter side to bring with me. And I was only going on this trip for maybe like 5 or 7 days. So I thought, I'll bring this with me. I don't think I'm gonna finish it. I ended up finishing it. While I did like this book, I just wasn't as on edge as I was with The Housemaid. The Housemaid, I feel like, was one of my first thrillers, and it was really entertaining to me, and I was invested. The Housemaid's Secret is a bit, I'm not gonna say it's a bit different, but I feel like once you get used to the kind of writing that are in these books, you can kind of like predict where this is going. It's kind of almost like formulaic in a way. But overall, I was still interested in where this book was going. It took some unexpected turns, but I was still very much involved in what was happening. I was just interested in it, but not as much as the first one. So I gave this one a 3.6 out of 5 stars. There's a whole reading vlog about these two actually on my vacation, but I only brought one book with me. I ended up finishing it on vacation. And then on my way back home, I was like, I need a book. I didn't bring an iPad. I didn't bring anything to watch on my flight back home. And I was like, I need something to read. So I was on a mission. For some reason, I just felt it in my brain that I was going to find the third book in the Housemaid series. And I did, which was absolutely crazy because I went to every bookstore in that airport, and it was only like it's not even a bookstore, it's like a store, like a general store with like 2 shelves or 3 shelves of books, and I did find it. So I did pay a hefty price for her too. So I'm gonna read this from what I have in my phone because this was an interesting experience. This book took me 210 pages to get into, with only 383 pages in the book. So about 54.8% of the way in. For both of the other books, I was pretty much into the story like right away, but this one was slow. There's also a huge time jump between the second book and the third book, and I think that really took a toll on the way I experienced this story. There were new characters introduced. It was slow. I went over details I didn't really care about, and I wasn't really interested in what happened in this book, quite frankly. So I gave this a 3.3 out of 5 stars. Now we have Two Twisted Crowns. This took me about 270 pages to get into, quite a deep way in. I guess where some of the storylines were going in the first book, and that really happened in this book. It really did pick up at the end. I think that's where I really liked it, and that kind of made up for the first half of this book, because I don't know, I was just so invested in the first book, and I think maybe since that ended at such a high, I expected this to also be going that way and like kind of keep that momentum and everything. This book actually has multiple point of views, and I'm not sure if I generally like that very much, but I like the ending. And this was like one of the few times that I've kind of been like hurt with a book ending, and kind of like seeing their journeys end and knowing that I'm never gonna see them again. It just kind of like made me sad, but I liked it, and it came off of the first one, so I really like both of them. And as a series, I like them even more. So I gave this a 3.7 out of 5 stars. But yeah, honestly, if you want to read these books, I would recommend it because I really enjoyed it. After that, I went into Jurassic Park. 2024, towards the end, I had gotten really obsessed with the idea of reading Jurassic Park. I think I was just getting a lot of Jurassic Park TikToks because the new movie was coming out this year. I think it came out in the summer. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read Jurassic Park. And that's what I did. This is Jurassic Park and the Lost World. I only read the first one, so I still have to read the second one. I, of course, have watched all of the Jurassic Park movies. The first one is my favorite, and I don't know if that's like a good thing, going into reading Jurassic Park, I feel like when you really like something, you always hear like that the book is better than the movie. So I was just expecting a lot of this book, and the way people talk about it, the way I heard it being promoted as was that the book had a lot more horror elements than the movie did. And I can't necessarily agree. Listen, I've watched Jurassic Park multiple times throughout like my childhood and now even. Like, I love Jurassic Park. I've always loved Jurassic Park. I think that the characters in the movie were better fleshed out than in the book, which is kind of crazy to say. I'm a character person. I like to read about characters. I like to really dive deep, see what's up with you, you know, what's going on in your head. These were very surface level details about all of the characters, and I didn't find myself caring about any of them, quite frankly, which is not good, I feel like, when you're reading a book. Like, I want to care about these characters and what's gonna happen. And Jurassic Park, obviously people are gonna die, and I feel like you have to care about the characters. If they're gonna die, you're gonna want them to not die. Like, that's the stake. You don't want your favorite person to die, and I didn't have a favorite person, so that's kind of like not good. I gave this a 3.6 out of 5 stars. I think when I first went into it, I was expecting like a 4 or 4.2, but there's a lot of details about the logistics about how these dinosaurs were made, which is also in the movie, but I feel like goes more in depth in here. And honestly, I wasn't put off by it. Usually it was like kind of science fiction-y. I'm not really into science fiction, which is actually going to take a turn towards the end of this year. But honestly, I wasn't put off by it. I actually found it quite interesting. So that's a plus, I guess. But yeah, 3.7 out of 5 stars. I'm still going to be reading The Lost World at some point, hopefully this year. I'm thinking about it. Like, I really want to go back to it. I don't know, it just gave like the island vibes are kind of calling me again, and I kind of want to read this. So okay, we are going into one of the highs of 2025, which was the release of Sunrise on the Reaping. Oh, hello. Hi. Wanna say hi? Sorry, that's my dog. Hi. Okay, no. Okay. One of the highs of this year was Sunrise on the Reaping. This was an anticipated release for me. Listen, okay, I only read The Hunger Games for the first time about like 2 years ago, I want to say, and I really like them, okay? The one I'm gonna say I didn't like, or the one I least liked, was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And honestly, that could have been a little bit tainted because as I was reading Mockingjay, I actually got COVID, and I kind of wanted to take a break from the series, but I was like, no, the movie's coming out, so might as well read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So I did, and I didn't enjoy it as much as the other ones, but finding out that this was Haymitch's story pulled me back in. I've always wanted to read about Haymitch, about Finnick, even about Jenna Malone's character. I can't remember her name. Oh my god. You know who I mean. Anyway, I've always wanted to read about them. I'm gonna say no spoilers about this. So they go into Haymitch's games like very briefly in Catching Fire, I think. And it had been like about a year, maybe a year and a half since I had read those books. So I didn't really remember anything about it. And I thought about going back, but I was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna read this. And it was basically like my first time experiencing it. I remembered the outcome, obviously. I just didn't remember how it happened. And this was really good. It was really good. I don't want to go too much into it in case you haven't read it. The movie comes out this year, but I really love this book. I gave this a 4.6 out of 5 stars. I have to go back and reread the Hunger Games series. At the time I didn't have a rating system, so if you look on Goodreads, I think all of them have like 3 stars, which is not right. But yeah, 4.6 out of 5 stars. I really liked Catching Fire, so maybe this is like on par with that one, but I have to go back and reread them all. Sorry, my SD card ran out of storage. It's actually so good that I ordered an SD card without knowing that my SD card was low on storage because it came in literally like 2 days ago. So really good timing on that. But after Sunrise on the Reaping, I read Happy Place. This was my maybe 4th Emily Henry book. Also, can we appreciate how floppy this is? In terms of like best reading experience, this might be like #1 because oh my god. Okay, Emily Henry. I really loved Funny Story. Funny Story is my 5-star Emily Henry book. My only 5-star Emily Henry book. And one of my only 5 stars ever. I'm very picky about what I give 5 stars. So usually my ratings land around like the 3-star range. But Happy Place. I went into this knowing that some people really liked this book and some people really didn't. So I didn't really know what to expect. My expectations were like right in the middle. And honestly, I came out really liking this book. Like I really like this book. Like this is my number 2 Emily Henry book. I love this book. I'm not gonna say I like it. I love this book. This is a really good book. And I feel like when I look at it against book lovers or people we meet on vacation, like I really do like these more than those. This book, you know, revolves around a friend group who goes on vacation with each other to Maine, I want to say. And basically the couple in this group has broken up and they're trying to like basically fake their relationship to their friends because their other friends are getting married, and this whole weekend revolves around them. So they're kind of fake dating. I think that this book did such a good job at developing the surrounding characters around them. I feel like sometimes, most of the time, maybe in romance books, we don't really get to see much about the other characters and we don't get to flesh them out. And I just thought that this book did such a good job at developing the relationships outside of the main love interests. Like, we know how this friend group was formed. We know about the 3 main best friends, which are like the girls in this group. We know how they formed. We know how this tradition started. And I really enjoyed that. I really love this book, okay? I just think it did a good job at developing the relationships and the effect that their relationships, like their, you know, boyfriend-girlfriend relationship had an impact on this friend group in the entirety. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it to you. I give this a 4.3 out of 5 stars. Number 2 Emily Henry book, seriously. At this point, I was trying to read all Emily Henry books leading up to Great Big Beautiful Life, which I still haven't read. I read Beach Read, which was the last one I was missing to complete my Emily Henry universe reading up to this point. This is a book that I feel like everybody loves. Everybody except me, because I didn't love this book. I was very into it in the beginning, but as it went on, my entertainment decreased with it. The banter just wasn't for me. The characters didn't really vibe with me either. I just wasn't into it. If you want to know more about my experience reading these 2 books, I actually do have a video for these 2 books combined. They're both reading vlogs. I tell you more in-depth details if you want spoiler answers, but yeah. I gave this one a 3.4 out of 5 stars. Not terrible, not the greatest. It was okay. After that, I read Manacled. I actually have Alchemized. I haven't read Alchemized yet. I was gonna bring it down, but honestly, it's not, it is the same thing, but it's not the same thing at the same time. So, Manacled. Manacled was traditionally published last year, and I'd actually been reading Manacled since 2024. Manacled is a Hermione fanfiction, really huge fanfiction. I've always heard, not things, but I've heard how good it was. And in 2024, my interest peaked because I heard it was being traditionally published, which meant that it was going to be taken off of AO3. I had never been on AO3 at that point, so I really went on a journey to find this and download it before it was taken off, and I did it. I found it, and then I started reading it. And then actually at the time, I read Book Lovers. I kind of switched from Manacled to Book Lovers, and I completely stopped reading Manacled until about June or July of 2025. And I went back to it because it was always in the back of my head, like, I have to finish this book, like, it's being traditionally published. And it's not that my interest ever dipped while reading this book at all. It was just that, I don't know, I just got distracted, I feel like. I started reading other things, and I finally was like, you know what? Time to finish this book. So I did. There's a lot of trigger warnings going into this book. If you're thinking about reading it, I would suggest you check them out because they are very important, and so much goes on in this book. And I feel like, as someone who has read and watched Harry Potter, I read Harry Potter once, watched it multiple times as I was little, and the last time I watched it, I think, was actually when I finished the books for the first time. So it's been a little while. But these characters, when I was in elementary school, were like I love these characters. So going into Manacled, if you don't know, it is basically a what if scenario if Voldemort had won the war instead of Harry. This was way darker than anything I could have cooked up in my head. I feel like there was this certain connotation that there was with fan fiction, like not very quality writing and tropes, I feel like. So that was what my general expectation was with this book. Like, I knew people had said that it was a good story and it was well written, but when you apply the name of fan fiction to it, I feel like, I don't know, that just triggers something in your head. And maybe that was a good thing. Or maybe not, because my expectations while reading this book were low, and I came out really, really liking this book. It did so much for like the world building, and it went into like the magic, you know, how spells are developed and all of this other stuff apart from like the Hermione romance, which, if I'm being totally honest with you, I did not care about. I did not go into this because of Hermione and Draco. I've never been a person that wants those characters to be together, but I've, again, never given it much thought. That was not why I was reading this. I was reading it because I was interested as to why people were always talking about it, but I kept reading about it because this story is not a Harry story. It's like a Hermione story. Hermione's our protagonist, and it was so interesting to see where Hermione's relationships go with her friends throughout this book, and that's why I was invested. I was invested in her story, and I really liked it. I'm very interested to see how it's going to be, well, how it was adapted for traditional publishing, because I feel like a lot of the story relies on the relationships that were already built throughout the Harry Potter series. Like, I feel like that's also why you're reading it in the first place, because it's like a fan fiction about the characters you already know about. So I'm just very interested in that. I meant to read this last year, or I meant to read Alchemized last year, but I didn't get around to it, so I'm thinking that's something I'm gonna have to do this year. But I'm waiting for a little bit of time to pass just so I can go into this with like a fresh perspective. You know what I mean? But I gave Manigold a 4.6 out of 5 stars. And I said this when I was doing a reading vlog for this, but my rating is not based upon the relationship between Draco and Hermione. That's all I'm gonna put out there. I'm not spoiling anything, but I did not care about the relationship, and that is not what my rating is based on, okay? After that, we kind of started, that was July, so maybe in August I started like my summer ween reading. So The Long Walk was coming out in September, I want to say. So I read The Long Walk. The Long Walk is my second Stephen King book. I read Misery first. I loved Misery. The Long Walk was an interesting concept to me. I just think they could have done more with the characters that were in the book. And there were some things that came up during this book that just made me like a little bit uncomfortable. I didn't really like it. I don't know, just some of the topics were strange to be put in there. And most of that stemmed around like girls, because all of these boys are under the age of 18. But the way that they were talking about this, like inner monologues or like out loud things that had occurred in one character's past, were insane. And I didn't like that. And when I watched the movie, can I just say that that was completely cut out? Which I really liked. I was kind of indifferent about this. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars, but I like the movie. The movie's ending is different from the book though. Yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. And I really want to read more Stephen King this year, so I hope to do that. After that, I read No Longer Human. This is a graphic novel by Junji Ito. I had previously read No Longer Human, which is like right here. And No Longer Human is actually a book that was now made into a graphic novel. And I have not read that book, so I can't really say much about what was excluded from this. But I hated our main character. I didn't like him. Even though I didn't like him, I really felt for him. Some things happen in his life that are just completely awful, but him as a person, I could not support. So I read a few reviews because I didn't exactly really like this book that much, but I heard that, you know, details were excluded and the ending is actually completely different. So based on what I read in this book, I gave it a 3.2 out of 5 stars. Also for this book, please check out the trigger warnings because there's a lot to get through in here. And I don't know, maybe just like read the actual book before going into the graphic novel. I feel like that's what I should have done. But yeah, No Longer Human. After No Longer Human, I read Frankenstein. My first classic, I want to say. I don't know, maybe it's not my first classic. Is 1984 considered? My dog just moved. Is 1984 considered a classic? I'm not sure, but if it is, that was my first classic. I also read To Kill a Mockingbird. Whatever, you know, it's the first cloth-bound classic. I don't know what you want to call it, but I originally said this was my first classic ever. But I read Frankenstein. So I read Frankenstein because I wanted to read it, and plus Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein was coming out in November, which I really wanted to watch. So I read the source material first. I feel like I have a lot of, I don't know if they're interesting, but maybe like debatable opinions about this book and about who the villain is, I'm not gonna go into spoilers. I also talked about this, I feel like, in a reading vlog, so if you want to check that out, you can. But I gave this a 3.4 out of 5 stars. This movie was very descriptive and the ambiance was so enveloping, but at the same time the pace was very slow. I didn't really know anything about Frankenstein as a character going into this. Like, I know the typical, like the way he looks, the way he walks, and I assumed that he didn't talk at all. So I feel like I knew literally nothing about this character going into this, and I feel like that was kind of good. I never watched any of the movies. I feel like I've maybe seen him in like cartoons or something like that, but I've never paid much mind to Frankenstein, you know? I don't know. But also I feel like since I didn't know much, there were a lot of like twists and turns in this book, so it was very entertaining. But yeah, I gave Frankenstein a 3.4 out of 5 stars. I really want to read more classics. I always say that, and I never do, but this year I swear I want to read more classics. And then I went on another trip and I brought Strange Pictures and Strange Houses with me. These originally came into my orbit on TikTok. I was looking for more, I feel like the last few books it's really been like, you know, thriller horror. I was looking for more horror books, and in the summer I found Strange Houses and I heard a little bit about it and I wanted to read it, and then I found out Strange Pictures was the first book that the author published. So since I wanted to read this one and I kind of wanted to read this one, I read both, and I read them in publishing order. So I read Strange Pictures first. I read this on a trip as well, and I went into this not knowing much about it. I didn't really have high expectations for this book. I kind of was more excited to read Strange Houses, but I was actually very pleasantly surprised by this. This book has 4 chapters in it and basically covers 4 stories that are connected together. So as you go into this, you go into it kind of blind, you know, you're starting at the beginning and then you end on kind of like a mysterious note, like something needs to be continued, and then you go into the next story, and the 4th story really wraps everything together. No, not chapter 4. By chapter 3 you could kind of see like the ties coming together, and then chapter 4 kind of like ended that. I feel like there could have been a little bit more introduced into the story in chapter 4, but I still liked it. I gave this a 3.4 out of 5 stars. After that, I read Strange Houses, and I feel like coming off of that one, which I liked and I didn't really have any expectations for, I thought this one was gonna be better, because this is the one I've heard everyone talk about. Like, I've seen this cover, like, you know, like I just had higher expectations for this one going into it, and I feel like I kind of set myself up in that way. The premise was really interesting in this one. Basically, there's a house that has like a secret room that has no windows, no nothing in it. It's basically like, it's weird because it's like there's no way into it. There's no door, there's no way to get into it. So basically they're trying to figure out what this house was basically used for, which honestly everything was given away in the first 25 pages, and then they tried to kind of like do a plot twist in there, which for me it didn't really work at all. After you basically read what their theory is by page like 25 pages in, you kind of like get the sense that that's the way it's gonna go. And then I feel like while they were following that plot, they try to like subvert your attention to something else and say like, oh my god, but like look at that, what if that, and then that actually happens, and I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. At the end of this one, I actually read that they're working on strange buildings, and I don't know what it is about this, but like I want to read more. I just really want to read more. I don't know why, I just liked it. So Strange Buildings coming next, and I kind of hope that that one is blue because I feel like that would really like put together this color scheme. After that, I had to read The Compound Effect for work, so I actually listened to that on Spotify, and I didn't realize I had to read it for the next day. I had to read it for a Thursday and it was Wednesday, and I was like, oh my god. So I really plowed my way through that one. I'm not big on self-help books. I've never read one of my own will. And The Compound Effect, I feel like, is something that everyone has heard at some point. It's like saying that instead of going out to get your coffee every day, like make it at home. You can save like $4 every day, and over time that equates to this some amount of money that you're saving, and really you're doing all of this. But like, I mean, that's something I've heard forever. That's not a new concept, and maybe when the book was published it was a new concept, but for me, reading this in like 2025, I was like, yeah, what else though? And that's basically like the entire book. It's giving you examples of things that you could be doing and saving money on, or working towards your goal. And I don't know, I didn't really find much like knowledge or advice in, but the way that the author talks about it is like it's giving off that it's something like revolutionary, which obviously to me it was not. I gave this a 2 out of 4 stars. Felt like the author was giving off the vibe that he was like saving everyone because this is knowledge that everyone does not know and he has to tell you this. And I feel like it's basic knowledge. Like, you know that if you don't go out to get coffee every day that you're gonna be saving a lot of money. Like, I don't know. After I read those 2 books, I read my true horror book, which was The Handmaid's Tale. And honestly, after I found out more knowledge about this, I found out that it was inspired basically by true events. Like, nothing in this book contains something that has never happened throughout the history of the world. In whatever country, like, all of these events have happened at one point, which sent me over the edge, honestly. Yeah, I read The Handmaid's Tale. I felt like it was relevant, okay? And I've always wanted to watch The Handmaid's Tale, and I never have. So I was like, okay, I want to watch it. Read the book, you know? And I thought that this book was published maybe in like the 2000s, 2010s, because like some of these things that are coming up is just very relevant. And to find out that it was published in the 1980s, 1984 or 5, if I remember, was actually so scary to me. Like, I thought these were like, I don't know what I thought, but it was a trip. Basically, if you don't know what The Handmaid's Tale is about, it's about this like dystopia that has all of the women being subservient to men. Basically, you're only there to work for them, provide them with children. Basically, you're just always doing something for a man. You cannot do anything without permission. You can't do anything, period. I mean, you can't go out by yourself, you can't read, you can't do anything, basically. And I don't know what way I thought this book was going, but it was oddly still. That's the only way I think I can describe it, because I thought maybe we would be going on a mission of some sort, but we were not. This was a fairly like still, like kind of day in and day out of what happens to these women. And I don't know, that's just not the way I thought this book was gonna go. I liked this, I really did. The ending, I don't know, I just wanted like a little bit more of an explanation, I think. But I gave this a 4.2 out of 5 stars. I recently got The Testaments for Christmas, which is the second book of this one. So I'm gonna read that one and then I'm gonna watch the show. But yes, I read The Handmaid's Tale. After that, I read one of the books that sent me over the edge, I feel like. This had been an anticipated read for me for I want to say the last 3 years, because if I'm being totally honest, I like the cover. The Enigma of Room 622 is a mystery book, okay? Murder mystery book. When you read a murder mystery book, I feel like you're expected to be grounded in reality. Not that this wasn't grounded in some sort of reality, but I feel like this very much takes some what's it called? Takes some, not liberations, some, I don't know, freedoms is what I mean. I got so mad while reading this book, actually. Yeah, it basically starts off with this guy who, his father owns like this huge bank and it's a family business, and then his father dies and he doesn't name the heir to his business at all. So this guy's kind of going crazy. He was like, well, the board has to vote for me because like I am the heir of the bank. And then things start unraveling and there's a murder that happens. It kind of originally starts on an author going on a vacation and he finds out that the room 622 is off limit, like there is no room 622, and then kind of leads him to like investigate to why. And then we kind of go into the past, and that's where this whole bank situation happens, and someone dies and a lot of liberties are taken with the way this book goes. Like a lot of liberties. Like if I would have predicted the way this was gonna go, like this went completely in the other way. It was bizarre, I feel like, for me. I don't know. I just feel like I hyped this book up so much in my head that I thought it was gonna be such a good book that when it just went completely crazy, I also went completely crazy because I was like, what do you mean? Like at this point I was like laughing and I'm like, what? So I feel like if you go into this book completely open to wherever it's gonna take you, then maybe you'll like this book. But for me, I felt like I was expecting like a normal murder mystery with some like interesting like developments, but I was not expecting what this book gave me. And if you're wondering, the murder didn't even happen until like more than halfway through the book. Everything that happened in this book was basically like unbelievable to me. I gave this a 2.8 out of 5 stars. I don't even know why I gave it a 2.8, but at the time I gave it a 2.8 out of 5 stars. Would I ever recommend this to someone? Probably not, but if you want something kind of insane, I'd say read this. After The Enigma of 622, I went on vacation again, and I read Dark Matter. This has been my first science fiction book. And well, technically Frankenstein is the first ever science fiction book, is what I've heard. Like, literally, like, the first science fiction book ever written. But Dark Matter is the first one I've read since I read 1984 when I was taking a class for... No, I was taking a science fiction class, actually. Yeah. I was skeptical about science fiction, mostly because I really didn't like any of the books that I read in that science fiction class, except A Clockwork Orange I actually enjoyed. But I read Dark Matter. Dark Matter was an Apple TV show, and I saw the trailer for it, and my dad had been bothering me forever about watching the show, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna read the book first. So I took it with me, and this was so entertaining. I feel like I don't even want to tell you too much about this if you don't know. I had watched the trailer before, and maybe that gave me like an edge as to what this was about, but I don't really want to tell you anything because I feel like the best way of going into this is to go in knowing absolutely nothing. And I really didn't think I was gonna read much on this vacation at all, and I finished this book. It was only like 300 and something pages, but like still, like, I say I don't read much on vacation, but when a book really grips you, I feel like you find the time to read, and that's what happened with this one. Like, I was so invested in this book, and I really liked it. As always, there's a like protagonist and an antagonist, and I feel like we really do understand the antagonist in this book, and that's always good. Like, it's always good for you to understand where a villain is coming from. I feel like that gives them like a sense of humanity, and it makes them more complicated. Like, you know why they're doing what they're doing, but it's still not right, you know? And the concepts, like the science fiction concepts that come up in this book, are very digestible. I digested it. But it's again something that I've encountered in the past. Like, this isn't a new concept for me. There was a few questions that I had regarding it. Like, I don't know, I don't want to call it a plot hole, but there was a question that came up for me. And actually, when I watched the show, my dad asked the same question, and I was like, right? We never got an answer, so yeah. But I overall really like this book, and I would recommend it, especially if you want to try getting into science fiction. I feel like this is a very entertaining read. I gave this a 3.8 out of 5 stars. At the time, I was in between a 3.8 and a 4, okay? But I feel like if anybody off the street asks me like what I rated a book, I'd go in solid numbers. So like, you tell me what I rated this, even though it's a 2.8, I'd probably tell you like a 2 star. You ask me what this is, it's a 3.8, but I'd tell you it's a 4 star. It's just the way I feel about it, you know? Like, could I say this is 3 stars? Actually, maybe, but I don't want to tell you it's a 3 star. So yeah, 3.8 round up to 4 star. I really liked it, okay? Check it out. On that same trip, I actually brought with me Remarkably Bright Creatures. This is a book I'd been wanting to read for a while. The concept of it was really interesting. There's a talking octopus in it, which I heard was really funny. But basically, there's this lady who works at an aquarium, and it's a fiction book. I feel like not much goes on, but once I saw what was happening, I gathered where it was gonna go. But again, like, the problem that I have sometimes with books is that you don't tell me enough about who a character is. You can tell me what's happened to them, like in this book, but I'm still not getting to know them, I feel like. Like, I know your backstory, but I don't feel. Like, I feel for you, but I don't feel that deeply for you. You know what I mean? Like, I know, like, I'm sad for you, but, like, I need to care more. And none of the characters in this book made me care super deeply like I should, you know? I gave this a 3.2 out of 5 stars, and overall, the octopus was the best character in this book. His name is Marcellus. He's not a talking octopus, like, he doesn't talk, but, like, you get his point of view, and he talks, like, in his head, so you can read about him and, like, what he thinks, you know? Not like an actual talking octopus. But I'm down to my last 2 books. I had the idea to read my TNF books. Not really working out for me right now. I haven't been excited to read in a fairly long time. I feel like since like November with Dark Matter, I haven't been excited to read. but I decided to read my DNF books. And that leaves us with our last two. I DNF'd Red, White, and Royal Blue in 2021 or 2022. And the thing is with me is that if I DNF a book, I'm gonna go back to it because I own it. I own all of my books. If I buy it, I'm going to read it. No matter what, I'm going to finish it. I don't care if I don't like it. I paid money for it, so I'm gonna read it. You know what I mean? And this is my thing with romance. I like slow burn, and I like the slowest of slow burn. I wish nothing but for the characters to get together in the last 20 pages, maybe even last 10. I feel like the romance genre is like very formulaic, you know, like they meet, they flirt with each other. Normally they probably get together, and then there's third act breakup, which you can predict because it's always there. And then usually I feel like you understand why they break up, but it's kind of annoying because you know this could have been worked out before. But that's the thing with like a funny story specifically. When I read it, it was slow burn, and for them, I understood why they broke up. It wasn't something that happened just because that's the way the formula goes. It was something that I understood why it was happening. And that's kind of what I love, okay? When I read Red, White, and Royal Blue, by the middle point, which honestly, I have still halfway to go, they're already together. And I feel like I can say that because it's a romance and you know they're gonna get together. But they got together way too early on for me. Honestly, it might have even been before the halfway point. So after they had been together maybe for like 30 pages, I was like, you know what, I'm out. And that's when I tapped out. So going back into it, no, I did not go back and read it from the beginning. I went back maybe like 10-15 pages and I went in from there. And I feel like maybe that wasn't the best idea because there were still some outlying other factors going on in the outside world that were happening, but I wanted to finish the book. And if I DNF'd it before, that means that there wasn't really anything going on for me to stick around and find out what was gonna happen. So basically I was bored when I DNF'd it, and I was kind of bored when I picked it back up, which wasn't the greatest. I gave Red, White, and Royal Blue a 2.8 out of 5 stars. After that, all my DNF books was Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I was in a slump when I first picked up Before the Coffee Gets Cold, but the slump probably definitely had something to do with my overall mindset going into this book, but this was better than I remember, and I actually did restart this book from the beginning, I want to say. I think I did. Yeah, overall the stories were okay. It's like ongoing, like it all happens in the same setting, so you see repeating characters, but the stories were overall okay, and I saw where they were going, but it was still entertaining overall. I gave this one a 3.3 out of 5 stars. And those are all of the books that I read in 2025. I think I want to say that I like the majority of the books that I read this year or last year, so that's good. And yeah, these are all of the books. I read 22 books out of the 25 that I wanted to read, and pretty good, I want to say. So thanks for watching. I already made my 26 books that I want to read in 2026, so maybe check that out if you want. So if you liked it, give it a like, subscribe maybe, and if you want to keep up with me anywhere else, all my socials are linked down below. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye!